we do hope you're going to join our panel because I'm going to pull up our next couple of guests here up on the stage. And it's a great pleasure to welcome Ankur Gupta, Head of Corporate Affairs and Growth at Tata Sons MENA. A very warm welcome. Wonderful to have you here. And a very warm welcome to Rajesh Singhi, MD, Regional Head of Mergers and Acquisitions for Africa and the Middle East, and Head Sector Coverage for the Middle East, Africa and Pakistan at Standard Chartered Bank. A very warm welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, what a fantastic panel we have here. I mean, absolutely incredible. The lineup we've had over the last couple of days has just been phenomenal. So thank you so much for your time, first of all. Really great to have you here. Ankur, let's start off with you, if I may. Tata has been present in the region for over 23 years now. Tell us a little bit about, how you came into this market and your growth story, essentially.
Sure, thanks, Laura. So Tata Group, fairly well-known globally, but maybe I take a minute and introduce what we do in the region. We've been here for 50 years now, well-kept secret. We have 23 Tata companies which operate in this region, revenues slightly over $3 billion, and we have about 12,000 employees, primarily across technology, infrastructure, which serve this particular country. Our beginning in this region was very similar to our beginnings in India. Our most well-known Tata experience was people going to schools in Tata buses and having stories about that. Of these 23 businesses though, Laura, 10 of them have come into the UAE and this region in the last 5 years, and which is why probably it was relevant that we share our perspective on UAE as a springboard for Indian businesses, not just for the reasons which have already been shared by Mr. Kant and others over this panel, but real experiences where we've brought businesses like Vistara, like Tanishq, like Tata Technologies and many others to this region over the last 5 years. One of our most recent stories was Tanishq, our first international outlet outside of India, was in Dubai last year, and now we are expanding to 5 new outlets this year. And yeah, it's all of the reasons which have been mentioned, the Indian diaspora, connectivity to India, all of them have been reasons which have gotten here. Of course, when we say 3.5 million people back home in India say, yeah, that's a suburb of one of our metro cities, but what they do not probably account for is UAE as an economy is $390 billion GDP. And if the Indian diaspora is 35-38% of that diaspora, the Indian diaspora roughly would be responsible for more than $120 billion, which is far bigger than one of the largest states of India. So the opportunity in UAE, and then of course as a gateway market to MENA, still is large for any Indian business to consider.
Moving over to Rajesh, what advantages and opportunities do you think the Indian companies see when they look at the UAE then?
I think as Ankur mentioned, the first thing is obviously the fact that you have a large Indian population here. So it's kind of a natural extension of your business. Also, I think traditionally UAE has been a big center for trade, tourism, transportation. If you look at Jebel Ali Port, if you look at Emirates Airline, and it's been the sort of point which connects you to Africa on one side, Europe on the other, and the subcontinent on the third side. So a lot of Indian businesses who want to do business in Africa use UAE as a base for doing that. And as Ankur mentioned, it's not just UAE, but it's the GCC as a whole, which represents about $1.5 trillion of GDP. And if you add Africa to that, then you're adding another 1.5 trillion and a billion plus of population as well. So that's one thing which kind of is a sort of driver for Indian businesses moving here. I think the other thing which UAE in particular has shown time and again, that it has this ability to move with speed. It's very nimble as a country and as the leadership of this country. If you look at some of the recent initiatives around, and a couple of weeks back or a week back, there was this announcement around aligning weekends to the rest of the world. You look at, everybody's heard about golden visa issuances. Over the last 18, 24 months, they made it easy for foreign entities to own 100% of their businesses here. So it's a country which is very nimble. It adapts itself very quickly, and it kind of is a big sort of, it's easy to set up businesses. The last thing I would say is, I think COVID has been a big game changer for UAE. I think it's been one city, Dubai and Abu Dhabi, or one country, where people have felt relatively safe, and at the same time, the country has been open. A lot of people tried various different things, and all were experiments. Singapore and Hong Kong did something where they completely shut down the cities. They kept the population relatively safe, but business really got hampered. You had sort of problems in Europe and US, and to some extent even India went through a very bad patch, especially in Q2 of this year. But UAE came out from COVID much stronger, keeping people safe as well as sort of keeping the businesses open. So those are, I guess, the sort of reasons why a lot of Indian businesses are choosing to have UAE as a base for doing business.
Navroz, back over to you. Why do you think Indian business models work so well in the UAE then? And do you have any advice for any companies that are looking to set up shop here then?
Yeah, so let me just start by saying we're kind of deep in this India-UAE burgeoning trade relationship, because Alpha Wave Incubation, our early stage fund, is specifically our capital provider is a sovereign UAE entity, and the mandate of that fund is fascinating, and at the cutting edge of kind of India-UAE entrepreneurial relationships. We find businesses in India and Southeast Asia, seed Series A, we invest in them with a mandate that they are to be tech-focused, disruptive, but bring to the UAE part of their team. So as part of the qualifying criteria, we transplant anywhere from 5 to 20 people, high-level talent, so engineers, C-suite professionals, in some case founders, move from India to the UAE and travel freely between the two countries on special visas, and build parts of their businesses that are global facing or that are GCC specific in the UAE. I think it's very simple. India is a 1.4 billion a person market, young, vibrant, full of entrepreneurial energy, but chronically capital starved. The UAE has a long history and tradition and culture of welcoming and having Indians here on the ground in Abu Dhabi. And they're treated well, they're treated kindly, they're treated fairly, and has a lot of capital. And so I can't think of two more natural bedfellows. In addition, one of the things that we found in the UAE is tremendous willingness to do business, as both your panelists just outlined, tremendous debottlenecking of bureaucracy and kind of restrictions of the past, and very, very cutting edge in data science and machine learning and artificial intelligence. Which if you're building a business today that aims to be disruptive and tech focused, you have to have that data science and ML and engineering talent. And the UAE provides phenomenal resources in that field, in addition to capital and everything else. And so I think we're in the very, very early stages of a very rich and productive relationship, and Alpha Wave Incubation and what we do is at the tipping point of that.
Very well said. Ankur, the title of our session, of course, is the UAE is a springboard for India's global growth. So how do you feel the sort of very fertile ground here is essential for global growth, basically, essentially?
Sure. Thanks, Laura. Let me again use a Tata example to share why we think UAE is a great place. Let me talk about Tanishq, which is one of our recent entrants. Jewelry, we are the market leaders in India, and there would have been larger markets for us to look at outside of the UAE, but I don't think we would have got the overall package, which both Navroz and Rajesh have mentioned about, in terms of not just the Indian diaspora, the ease of doing business, setting up and all of that, but also the competition. So as an Indian business, not only do we have our Indian competitors who are in the UAE and are familiar brands which you're familiar with, Joy Lucas, Malabars, etc., but you also have the best of, so as to say, Western competition here. And for us to not even just grow globally, but also be competitive and continue to be competitive in India, we need to be able to compete effectively in the UAE, learn lessons from being in this country, and then use this in other markets. For example, with jewelry, now we are going to the US, and also bring those lessons back home to India and ensure that we remain market leaders in our sectors going forward. And that's the role which UAE plays for us.
Very, very interesting. Rajesh, over to you. Tell us, in your mind, why the UAE is such an important place for global growth for any Indian company.
I think we touched upon a few of the topics already, or a few of the points already. But if you think of UAE, I guess, is whether it's sort of the innovation side of things, where UAE is taking, my apologies, UAE is taking sort of adapting practices and policies to promote innovation. You look at it, this is the region where oil has been the predominant source of the GDP and the economy. And yet, two of the earliest adopters of net zero are Saudi Arabia and UAE. They have committed to net zero by 2040 and 2050 respectively. Renewables as a space has sort of grown significantly, or is getting significant prominence in the region, which is very counterintuitive when you think of it, because it's a very oil-based economy. It's the cheapest cost producer of oil, and yet it's focusing so heavily on whether it's hydrogen, whether it's renewable sector. So it's the innovation side of things and being ahead of sort of the curve, which sort of puts it in a very good place to drive global growth. Besides, obviously, some of the things that we talked about, whether it's connectivity and trade and tourism.
Very, very quickly, and sadly we are running out of time, but there's been a lot of reference to this new cooperation agreement between the UAE and India. Has anyone got any comments on that and what that's going to do for Indian companies as well?
So from our perspective, UAE has been very supportive. Even when there was no formal trade agreements, UAE did make special dispensation for Indian businesses, for Tata Group on case-by-case basis. We've, of course, got businesses in Europe and Africa, and as Rajesh mentioned, we look forward to having UAE as a base and expanding to markets in the region. Of course, one watch out is the region itself is getting hyper competitive. It's not as easy to continue to use UAE as a springboard for GCC, and we need to figure out how do we get trade agreements working in the GCC region as well going forward.
Very interesting point there, yes.
No, I'll just give one example. Look, a few years back, we advised an Indian company in the cement space to come into UAE. And Ras Al Khaimah obviously has significant deposits of limestone. And limestone is key to getting cement done. And at that point in time, government of Ras Al Khaimah and IDO, the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Ras Al Khaimah, committed long-term offtake arrangements to allow the Shree Cement to come in and set up operations here. So again, just a sign of the business-friendly atmosphere or sort of policies that the leadership here sets to allow businesses to flourish.
Navroz, very quickly, we've got to wrap up now, but what are your thoughts off the back of this new trade agreement? Have you got any comments on that?
So I think the warmer the political and geopolitical relationships between the two countries, the better. I know from our contacts at government that there are very authentic and warm relationships. But echoing the panelists, we've just found that every time we've run into a bottleneck or an issue, we are able to debottleneck with the assistance of people on the ground. And the other thing I would like to add is the UAE is increasingly at the tipping end of Web 3.0, which is, again, anything blockchain, crypto. It's a very, very accommodative and enthusiastic environment. And we've also found, sort of like New York is to the United States or London is to Europe, it's very interesting. I find some of the best talent from across the Middle East are people we work with in the UAE: Egyptians, Jordanians, Lebanese, Syrians, and also local Emiratis, Pakistanis. Some of our greatest talent that we come across, and people who really kind of aid and abet bringing Indian entrepreneurs over to the UAE are the Pakistanis and the Egyptians. that we work with. And so it's a really fertile space for entrepreneurial energy. And our mandate for this fund has been very interesting. It's not just to generate financial returns, but to convert or to help transform the UAE into an entrepreneurial hub like Singapore or Tel Aviv or Bangalore. So it's a deeply welcoming and rewarding space to do business with, and a country that India enjoys great relationships with.
Thank you so much. So very sadly, that's all we've got time for. A very short session, sadly, but we've got a lot on today. Navroz, Ankur, Rajesh, it's been a great pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much. Fantastic session there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.